money my mom promised you is out at the front door. So thank you for attending this year's State of the Community Luncheon and supporting the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Redlands in this collaborative effort. I'm honored to present today Honorable Paul W. Foster to the stage to provide us with this year's 2019 State of the Community Address.
That would work too. Thank you very much, Marissa, for that. Very kind of you. I hope I don't let her down or the rest of you down in my comments a little bit later. But to start with, I'd like to introduce a few folks to you here in the room. I hope they've arrived, because I haven't seen them, been so busy. If I call your name, if you'd stand up, these are some of our elected officials and the former elected officials. Our current city clerk, Ginny Donaldson. I know Ginny's here. I did see her. City Treasurer Robert Dodds. Our Mayor Emeritus Carol Beswick. Past Council Member Jerry Bean. And I'm not sure if they're all here. Past Council Member Mick Gallagher. I know Mick's here. City Clerk Sam Irwin, who's actually in town. Wait a minute, tie and coat, Yeah.
I'm retired.
Margarita Mill every day for Sam Irwin, I tell you. All right. From our exemplary school district, our Redlands Unified School District Board President, Christina Parachi. School Board Member Patty Holohan. And School Board Member Ricardo Luis. I don't know if he's arrived yet, but our Assemblyman James Ramos. There he is. A fellow Kiwanian and our San Bernardino Auditor Tax Collector, Ensign Mason. I know I saw Ensign come in. Milton Harrison, President of the San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District. Dick Cornell, President of the San Bernardino Water Conservation District. And David Rayleigh, Board Member from the San Bernardino Water Conservation District. A special guest I wanted to introduce to you who's not an elected, but is a very important new member of our community, Dr. Kevin Horan, the President of Crafton Hills College, is with us today. And Kevin has decided to make his home right here in Redlands, so we're glad he's a Redlander too. At this time, I'm going to relinquish the podium to our Public Information Officer, Mr. Baker. And we're going to present the award.
Thank you, Mayor Foster. It's my pleasure to announce the Redlands Beautification and Heroes Awards. Beautification Awards recognize buildings or facilities within the city of Redlands that capture outstanding landscape, architecture, cleanliness, and curb appeal. Our first Beautification Award is presented to Dr. Marcus Paulson for his historical rebuild of the Paulson Orthodontics Building. Mindful of Redlands' historic past, Dr. Marcus Paulson began his journey of the historical rebuild at 219 Cajon Street more than a year ago in 2018, spending countless hours in the Heritage Room where he meticulously planned the reconstruction of a building that would meld seamlessly with its surroundings. Built in a late 1890s Victorian style, many of the details you can see today built into the facade of Paulson Orthodontics pay homage to buildings which had stood on the property in the past, even to other buildings that existed in Redlands at the time. During his time researching, Dr. Paulson focused on specific details of what would become the Redlands home of Paulson Orthodontics, where he implemented many historical design elements, including roofing, siding, detailed exterior embellishments such as the copper finials located on gables, and carved woodwork, and a complementary color scheme that would allow the building to stand out from the rest. Not only did he focus on the exterior, but equal attention was paid to the interior, where he added special elements such as pattern molding, stained glass, window detailing, and period reproduction, advertising for his business. Having spent the majority of his time researching his project in the library's heritage room, Dr. Paulson was successful in ensuring that Paulson Orthodontics displayed and honored all the qualities of a late Victorian building. It honors the memory of the original building that stood on the site, owned by a local reverend and his wife, John and Mary Easter. Although that building no longer exists, Paulson Orthodontics will continue to shine a light on Redlands history for years to come. For these reasons, we are honored to present Dr. Marcus Paulson with a Beautification Award in recognition of his historical rebuild of the Paulson Orthodontics building. Our next Beautification Award goes to Dr. Timothy Watson in recognition of the adaptive reuse of the historic Mission Pediatrics building. When Dr. Watson first embarked upon his journey to open a local practice in Redlands, he had a vision in mind. Cognizant of the city's history and with respect for local heritage, Dr. Watson's property at 114 West Vine Street began a journey of renovation and rebuilding that would both honor and shine a light on its past. Originally built in 1902, the Mission Pediatrics building was briefly used as a hospital before becoming a private residence until 1933, when Mr. Eldridge M. Lyon purchased the home and gifted it to the Associated Charities, now known as Family Service Association. The home received a Heritage Award from the Redlands Area Historical Society in 1977 and remained a local landmark for many decades until ultimately becoming the home of Mission Pediatrics. Dr. Watson has maintained the historical integrity of the original structure, renovating the exterior with clean landscaping, a beautifully chosen exterior color scheme, and a detailed engraving marking the site as the former home of Redlands Community Hospital. Dr. Watson has also taken care to keep one of its most distinguishing features, its unique fish scale patterning, achieved through the use of overlapping shingles located on gables and its distinctive tower. He has made it a beautiful marker where visitors to his practice, both parents and children, can see history come alive. His mixture of humor, good cheer, and creation of a calming and beautiful atmosphere for those he treats has made Mission Pediatrics a welcome addition to our community. For these reasons, we are honored to present Dr. Timothy Watson with a Beautification Award in recognition of his work in the adaptive reuse of the Mission Pediatrics building. Our next Beautification Award goes to Tim Rochford in recognition of the adaptive. Go ahead. In recognition of the adaptive reuse of the Redlands Chamber of Commerce building. Tim Rochford and the Rochford family have been fixtures within the Redlands community for years. Founders of the Rochford Foundation, they are no strangers to Redlands history. Through the Rochford Foundation, Tim Rochford has been instrumental in the preservation and care of the Burridge mansion, maintaining the grounds in the building for more than a decade. It offers a beautiful backdrop for assisting local nonprofits that serve children. So it comes as no surprise that on purchasing 47 North 1st Street, Tim Rochford would endeavor to work toward the same goal. Originally built as a single-family residence between 1896 and 1900, it was occupied by various families throughout the years. Now the home of the Redlands Chamber of Commerce, the building has been returned to its former glory. Mr. Rochford worked to remortar the entire building, re-roofing and refurbishing the sash-on windows, and redesigning the interior of the building to accommodate both heating and air conditioning for the inhabitants. With landscaping and repaving completely redone, the building is a showcase for its many visitors, representative of its past, present, and future. For these reasons, we are honored to present Tim Rochford with the Beautification Award in recognition of his work in the adaptive reuse of the Redlands Chamber of Commerce building. Moving on to our next category, the Redlands Heroes Award recognizes individuals who have performed voluntary activities that address a community need or enhance the quality of life for Redlands residents, and simply demonstrate acts of generosity and kindness. Our first award goes to Rick and Kelly Ferguson. The homeless are often the faceless members of our community, most desperately in need of compassion and care. With no permanent home, they are often left to fend for themselves, and most with a difficult, transient lifestyle, struggling to search out safe housing options while attempting to meet their most basic hygiene and health needs. Homelessness is a difficult and overwhelming crisis to overcome, and Rick and Kelly Ferguson have emerged as two of the foremost members of the community to respond to the need. When the Redlands Cold Weather Shelter first opened, the Fergusons joined other volunteers working tirelessly to ensure its continuous operation, allowing many in the homeless community to access much-needed services and care. Acting as a voice for the cold weather shelter, Rick and Kelly Ferguson have advocated for community involvement in alleviating the crisis, voicing the need for food, clothing, bedding, and supplies to those less fortunate. Through their dedicated hours as volunteer coordinators and tireless advocacy for the homeless, they have demonstrated that no matter your circumstances or your background, the smallest offer of help can make the biggest difference in another's life. For these reasons, we are proud to recognize Rick and Kelly Ferguson as heroes of the City of Redlands. Our next award is presented to Casey Ryman. Since early childhood, Casey Ryman has always carried with her an innate sense of kindness, gentleness, and good spirit. It's no surprise that as she grew from childhood to the young woman we see today, she would inevitably find herself dedicating so much of her time to service. A high achiever in middle school, she became an invited member of the California Junior Scholarship Federation due to her academic success. She continued to win awards throughout her middle school years, ultimately achieving the Presidential Achievement Award. Since 8th grade, Casey has remained a dedicated and loving volunteer at the Redlands Animal Shelter. Over the years, she has cleaned cages, walked dogs, comforted animals, or spent time just separating recyclables. She was recognized as the Volunteer of the Month in January 2016 for her diligent efforts in the shelter. Since then, Casey has become the local face of shelter adoption as the city's Pet of the Week girl, highlighting adoptable pets through Redlands' local television channel and during city council meetings. Since her start with the shelter, she has accumulated more than 500 hours of volunteer service. While young, Casey's years of volunteering at the Redlands Animal Shelter have served as an inspiration to many in our community. Her commitment is a shining example that many young people in our community can follow. For these reasons, we are proud to recognize Casey Brennan as a hero of the City of Redlands. Our next award is presented to Leonard G. Ortiz. Leonard Ortiz was a man who demonstrated the idea that it doesn't take moving a mountain to make a change in our world. Humble, kind, and caring in his own right, Mr. Ortiz was known in our community as the man who smiles. He worked as a crossing guard, shepherding countless children and families across a busy road, ensuring their safe arrival at Livonia Elementary School. Driving can be stressful on busy roads, especially within school zones, but it was Mr. Ortiz's innate positivity and happiness that helped to lessen the stress and brighten a difficult commute. For many drivers, Mr. Ortiz made their day better. Many drove out of their way just to see him smile and wave. The students loved him, and their parents respected him. Over the years, he left a mark on many hearts and minds, demonstrating that just a small gesture of kindness and positivity could change another's outlook. After all, happiness and kindness breeds more happiness and kindness. Mr. Ortiz will be remembered as someone who epitomized the idea that a small ripple can cause a huge wave. For these reasons, we are proud to posthumously recognize Leonard Ortiz as a hero of the City of Redlands. Accepting the award on his behalf is Councilmember Eddie Tejeda. Our next award recipient is Joe R. Gonzalez. A lifelong resident of Redlands, Joe Gonzalez dedicated his life to the less fortunate. Having lived through a time of great social inequity, Mr. Gonzalez was known as a man who worked toward a world of inclusivity and acceptance. He acted as a voice for the Latino community and served as a positive role model, advocate, and representative of the positive change he wished to see. Mr. Gonzalez was instrumental in the establishment of the city's community center and was involved in service through several organizations, such as the Northside Impact Committee. His passion for service and community involvement lives on in the hearts and minds of those he knew personally. Today, he is recognized not only for the change he helped to instill in Redlands, but as an inspiration to others and an example of leadership, inclusivity, and compassion for others. For these reasons, we are proud to posthumously recognize Joe R. Gonzalez as a hero of the City of Redlands. Accepting the award on his behalf, this is granddaughter Stephanie. Our next award recipient is Alice Moore. Alice Moore has always been viewed by friends and family as a woman who lives her life positively, wholeheartedly, and with an eye firmly set on the future. A longtime Redlands resident, Ms. Moore first came to Redlands when she was a young college student, and she's lived in Redlands ever since. Ms. Moore persevered through the loss of a partner, working to complete her college education and ultimately earning her bachelor's degree from Ashford University in August 2017. Having worked for the Redlands Unified School District, she fully understands the value of learning and education and has spent the majority of her life working to instill her passion for reading in the youth of our community. Through her work at the A.K. Smiley Library, Ms. Moore actively engages and encourages love of reading in children. Many visit the library just to see her, the calm and gentle demeanor she exudes, making them feel at home and at ease. Ms. Moore is also actively engaged in the local chapter of the AAUW, working as a coordinator since 2017 for Thanksgiving outreach at the Torche de Fe in San Bernardino, where she works with children in crafting, stories, and other activities. She also dedicates her time to encouraging the adoption of animals, especially senior dogs, from shelters. A proud owner of a shelter dog herself, she fully understands the unique bond and love that a shelter animal provides, and encourages the growth of that love through the selfless act of adoption. Ms. Moore has been a wonderful, caring, and giving member of our community. She shows us that despite difficulties and tragedies in one's life, you can still work to bring love and positivity into the world. For these reasons, we are proud to recognize Alice Moore as a hero of the city of Redlands. Our next award recipient is Jeff Bryce. Since it, walk over your applause. Since his early childhood, Jeff Bryce has been wholly oriented towards service. Joining the Boy Scouts at age 11, he began a journey of volunteering and community involvement that would follow him into adulthood. For years, Mr. Bryce has actively engaged the youth of our community in Scouts as a Scout leader, Scoutmaster, and varsity Scout leader, bringing the positive experience of outdoor activities such as hiking and camping into the lives of young Scouts. Mr. Bryce continued his youth-oriented volunteerism in his local church, planning countless youth activities, teaching, leadership development, chaperoning dances, and events offer only a brief glimpse into his many activities. Mr. Bryce has served as president of the Young Men's Organization on both the ward and state level of his church on multiple occasions, where he's overseen anywhere between 20 to 200 young men between the ages of 12 and 18, strengthening faith and promoting the growth and development of local youth within their religious community. Over the years, Mr. Bryce has left a positive impact on the hearts and minds of countless young people within our community. For these reasons, we are proud to recognize Jeff Bryce as a hero of the city of Redlands. Moving into the category of employee heroes, this year's award is presented to Armando Valles. Service can come in many forms, and it's certainly as valued in the city's employees as it is in any member of the Redlands community. Striving to better the world, working to leave a positive impact on those around you and in those you serve, there are not many who can leave as positive an impact as Armando Valles. And not many who rock a bow tie like he does. Many probably know him through his work at Hillside Memorial Cemetery. As you can probably imagine, in such an environment, it's necessary to be sensitive and caring of others. But not only does Mr. Valles strive in his professional life to the care of others, he has also conscientiously worked towards service as a community emergency response team volunteer. CERT is a volunteer-based program that trains community members in disaster preparedness and basic disaster response skills, such as fire safety, light search and rescue, team organization, and disaster medical operations. Mr. Valles takes his role to heart and has demonstrated that the cemetery staff can be an additional resource to assist in educating the public in emergency preparedness. In his capacity as a CERT volunteer, he has dedicated hours of his time educating himself on the CERT program and has become an affiliated member of the CERT program for the city of Redlands, ultimately becoming a CERT instructor. Since becoming an instructor, he has assisted in teaching multiple CERT classes, and with his team has helped in certifying more than 100 CERT program participants and assisted in several volunteer exercises. Mr. Baez has also worked to become a certified resource trainer to extend disaster preparedness to the greater Spanish-speaking communities of San Bernardino County. Not only has he been an active and outspoken advocate to his staff, but he has promoted emergency awareness to faith groups to further educate the community. His service has and will continue to leave a positive impact on the community as a whole. For these reasons, we are proud to recognize Armando Baez as a hero of the city of Redlands. Our final award will be presented by Mayor Foster.
Thank you, Carl. As most of you know that have been coming to these, I started these awards 5 years ago when I became the mayor. And I've always reserved the right to present one or two of my own selection at the end of each of these award ceremonies. So today I'm presenting one, and I'd like to read the citation. Our honoree has always been an individual conscious of the ideal of service, not only within her professional life, but within her personal life. A longtime resident of Redlands, she has fostered a love for service that seamlessly melded with her 30-year career as a registered nurse. As you can imagine, such a career adds an element of emotional awareness and conscientiousness to one's personality. It's no surprise that such a woman would also use her natural gifts of empathy and service towards bettering the lives of others on her own personal time. An active member of the Kiwanis Club of Redlands Noon, our honoree has been involved in various community activities such as the Run Through Redlands, the Bicycle Classic, the Redlands Christmas Parade, and she served as a member and president of the Kiwanis Club of Redlands Noon. She has also served on the coordinating committee of the Redlands Emergency Services Academy, otherwise known as RESA, for over a decade. She recently completed 2 terms as the president of the Family Services Association of Redlands, as well as a 2-term as an elected member of the San Bernardino Community College District Board of Trustees. Notwithstanding what I mentioned above, she has maintained an active voice in the ideal of community service. A recipient of awards over the years such as Women of Distinction from Assemblyman Bill Emerson, the Roy Coble Award for Service to Youth, Kiwanian of the Year, and Outstanding Professor of the Year from Catherine Hills College. It is clear that our honoree has and will continue to leave a positive impact on our community. For these reasons, I am very proud to recognize Donna Farrakhan as a hero of the city of Redlands. Not very happy with me. I've known Donna for quite a while, and it's a real honor for me to present this award to her. She's one of many in this room deserving of recognition, but I'm very proud to honor her today. Every so often you get to do something fun as well. Well, good afternoon, and would you join me again in congratulating all of the awardees today? Welcome once again to the 2019 State of the City Luncheon, a With each of these annual events, the participation grows as our residents and the business community members gather to learn about the status of our community, our successes and challenges, and help us all understand and reach a shared vision for the future of our town. I'd like to begin today by recognizing my City Council colleagues, and as I call their name, I appreciate them standing and remaining to stand. Each of them talented and capable of public service. Mayor Pro Tem Denise Davis. Last year, for the first time in roughly a quarter century, Redlands elected its first 3 city council members by district. Councilmember Barrett, Mayor Pro Tem Davis, and I were elected by the residents within our own geographic districts. The remaining 2 seats, currently held by council members Tejeda and Monberger, will be elected by district next year. But when you attend a city council meeting, you won't see district numbers on our nameplates. With each and every issue that comes before this council, my colleagues continue to thoughtfully deliberate and consider what is in the best interest of our community, our whole community, and they make their decisions with that in mind. I am so very proud to serve beside each of these individuals, and I'd just like you to take a moment to acknowledge them and their dedication again. You can sit down, man. Tony, she couldn't hide behind the orange tree, but she did anyway. There's also another small group of people who are fully aware of the sacrifice that comes with serving on the city council. That's our families, including my wife, Julie, who's here with me today. I think all of the elected officials in this room will agree with me when I say how grateful we are for their love and support, of our spouses, our partners, and our families. While you may not be in the public eye on a regular basis, you all perform a public service through your support for each of us, and I thank you for that. My thanks on behalf of the city to the University of Redlands and the Redlands Chamber of Commerce for hosting and organizing today's event. I wish to join the Chamber in thanking our sponsors for their generous and kind support. And finally, I want to recognize our city staff. They're the ones who really make the city run, diligently providing excellent service and support to the residents and businesses of our city. The City Council sets the policy direction, but it is the dedicated staff who implement those policies and build the bridges, both literally and figuratively, for our future. I especially want to recognize the executive team, beginning with Assistant City Manager Janice McConnell. Janice, if you please stand. We made a few changes in leadership about 8 months ago, and I asked Janice on behalf of the council if she would take on a new role as our interim city manager, and she did that wholeheartedly, jumping in, and she continues to do it in a new role as our assistant city manager, while the city council carefully considers the process to hire a new city manager. You will be learning more about the process in the coming weeks and months. We intend for many of you across a broad section of our community to be involved in that selection. But for now, I want you to all help me thank Janice for the tremendous job that she's been doing. I also want to recognize the following members of the city's executive team. Janice's partner in crime, almost on a daily basis, our city attorney, Dan McHugh. Facilities and Community Services Director, no longer Quality of Life, Chris Boatman. Police Chief Chris Catron. Fire Chief Nathan Cook. Director Danielle Garcia. And Library Director Don McHugh. While these folks remain standing, I'd like to ask all of the rest of the city family members attending this afternoon to please stand and be recognized. Would you join me in showing our appreciation for these individuals? Janice McConnell, Management Analyst Diane Raines, Nelia Vendana, our Senior Administrative Assistant, Public Information Officer Carl Baker, Multimedia Coordinator Cheryl Williams, and Chamber of Commerce General Manager Jan Miller. Many of you were here last year, and the year before that, and the year before that. In fact, this is the 5th year I've had the privilege as your mayor to present the State of the City address. And many of you have been here with me for most, if not all, of those presentations. For all those years, you've heard a consistent message, one that is focused on the tremendous effort and attention our city staff and elected officials have put for more than a decade now into rebuilding our community, repairing and replacing long-neglected infrastructure such as our roads and water and wastewater systems, replenishing and revitalizing our financial position, balancing our budget and building our reserves, and reconnecting our respect and reverence for the past with our vision for a future. Over those years, we have made commitments to our residents, and we've asked for your trust in putting your valuable resources, your tax dollars, towards specific improvements such as the Paris Project that combined money from solid waste fees and federal and state funds to rehabilitate the majority of the city's roads and maintain them for decades to come. Budgeting each year to reduce the roughly 13 miles of broken sidewalks scattered throughout our town to little more than half of that today. Continuing to improve our landfill to expand its useful life. Continue to ensure the health and safety of our community and extend our independence and ability to meet our solid waste needs for another generation. Using water rate increases to replace aging pipes and rehabilitate wells and reservoirs. Looking back, I hope you will agree that we've honored our commitments and have proven your trust to be well placed in us. This year, the city began or completed a number of other public improvements and amenities, opening our new $1 billion state-of-the-art skate park in January. With a generous donation from Jack and Laura Dangerman, we dedicated the new Zama Trail last spring. And completing a new amphitheater at Heritage Park last month with the help of hundreds of members from the community-minded volunteers as part of our Community Day of Service. We continue to make improvements to Hillside Memorial Park, such as the new Block 11, that has turned the cemetery, frankly, from a drain on public resources to a vital, self-sustaining enterprise. You've seen the improvements to our downtown, in addition to public artwork and whimsical features that attract new visitors who stay to shop and dine. I want to thank all of those who donated to the Mayor's Public Art Campaign, and I especially want to recognize and thank Tim and Carol Rochford for their generous donation of the beautiful new Sister Cities clock sculpture in Ed Hale's Park. Changes, along with other economic development efforts, have helped our existing business community to thrive while bringing in new business. Over the past 5 years, the number of paid business licenses in the city has increased steadily. And in 2018, that number nearly tripled over the prior year. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not easy to do business in Redlands, but that they're flowing in here all the time. And we continue to see investments and expansion in our community by organizations such as Esri and Redlands Community Hospital. We want to thank them and all of the entrepreneurs and small businesses who continue to show their faith and support in the future of Redlands. Each year for the past 12 years, city staff and city council budget subcommittee have worked diligently to create a balanced budget, one that spends less than we take in revenue. Earlier this month, the City Council approved fiscal year 2019-2020's budget, our 9th consecutive balanced budget based on recurring revenues since the Great Recession. At the same time, we have built up our reserves to roughly $22 million, with a portion of that money set aside to fund parking improvements and other capital needs. During fiscal year 2018-19, using reserves, grant revenues, and donations, the city was able to build a new skate park, repair and rewire aging streetlights, replace several fire and police vehicles, and make improvements to our beloved animal shelter. The city has also been steadily paying off its debts over the last 10 years. Since 2009, the city's debt per capita has decreased from $1,612 to $618. Folks, that's a reduction of 61%. In the general fund alone, we've reduced debt from $41 million to approximately $12.5 million during the same time period. This shows a responsible commitment in servicing our long-term debt obligations as a community. Now, while I'm extremely proud of the staff and my council colleagues, it's not all rosy, folks. Initial budget requests by city departments this year included about $9 million more in spending needs than were available from estimated revenues. While the assistant city manager and the executive team worked together to bring those spending requests into line, the cuts represent unmet needs and deferred improvements. Some of these requests included money to replace aging police dispatch equipment, as well as other public safety technology and protective equipment, replace heavy-duty safety vehicles, upgrade streetlights to more efficient LED lighting technology, and install and repair more than 7 miles of sidewalks. Property tax revenues to the city are expected to rise only modestly again this year, largely due to increased property sales and changes in assessed valuation and to new construction of both residential and non-residential properties. At the same time, this year's revenue projections estimate a flattening or even a decrease of sales tax revenues despite strong business growth. And part of the reason for that is that we have a lot of you sitting at home going click, 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 Amazon, Amazon, Amazon. And we're all guilty. I'm guilty of it too. But we are losing a substantial amount of sales tax revenues, all cities are, due to online purchases from large out-of-state online retailers. Digital sales in California have grown at a pace 4 times that of overall economic growth. They run about 13% nationally right now. We're told that it's probably going to climb every year over the next 5 years to where they reach 20 to 25%. That's huge, and it has an enormous negative impact on municipal government. Now, this doesn't apply to all online retail. There are local businesses whose online sales do generate tax revenue for the city. But in Redlands, we have 2 Amazon centers that generate a fortune in sales. Yet the bulk of that sales tax from those centers goes to the state of California. Almost none of it trickles back to us. So while the state sits on a multi-billion-dollar surplus, we continue to struggle to balance our budget and meet the needs of our community. The money coming from those 2 Amazon facilities alone would bring in between $5 and $10 million a year to the city of Redlands. Now remember that number, because I'm going to get back to it a little bit later. We have a great assemblyman, one who has a heart for Redlands. And James, though you're not a resident, we know you do. So thank you. We met with James and talked about this. There's a lot of discussion going on up in Sacramento. There were changes signed into law in April that expand the state's power to collect sales tax on out-of-town retailers. It's estimated that cities will generally receive a boost in sales tax revenue between 1.8 and 3.5% once the new law is fully implemented, but it could take years to get it fully implemented. But the reality is there's little interest or incentive in Sacramento to send this revenue back to local communities. And while the city's revenue stream remains flat, our expenses don't. Just like each of you and your businesses and your households, when your electric bill goes up, the city's electric bill goes up. When your gas bill goes up, the city's gas bill goes up. And even though the city runs our own water agency and our own landfill, we still pay the same rates that everyone else does for water and trash service. So while we have balanced budgets, we can see within a visible horizon our own operating costs continuing to rise. And that is a challenge not for the future, but for right now. While we've made a great deal of progress over the past decade in addressing our infrastructure needs, there are two remaining pieces of critical infrastructure still requiring our attention. The first is our wastewater treatment plant, which is next to the city's landfill by the Santa Ana River Wash at the northern end of Nevada Street. The city's wastewater treatment plant has undergone numerous expansions and modifications since its construction in 1962, mainly due to continual growth in the area, but also in order to meet changing state regulatory mandates. Given the plant's age, the majority of the treatment units have exhausted their useful life. And as modifications have occurred in a piecemeal fashion over the past 6 decades, current operations lack redundancy and cohesiveness, leading to frequent critical repairs. Portions of the plant use obsolete technology, which is expensive or even impossible to maintain or replace. The frequency of these repairs makes it difficult to ensure regulatory compliance, which puts the plant in jeopardy of being shut down. And, well, that could put us in deep, well, you know. In March, the City Council approved an agreement with an engineering firm specializing in wastewater to assess, plan, and design the rehabilitation of our plant. Currently, they are working with staff. See, she didn't want to hide behind the tree the whole time. Currently, they are working with staff to develop a roadmap for immediate and future rehabilitation efforts, which will be followed by an independent peer review to ensure an efficient and effective design. The design of the project is expected to be completed in mid-2020, and construction will probably begin shortly after that, being completed by 2021. Currently, estimated construction costs are approximately $40 million to provide the much-needed upgrades and long-term capacity for continued growth to meet the regulatory requirements. And I'll be quite frank, folks, that means wastewater rates are going to be going up. Our job as a council and as a city staff is to determine how to meet those needs with the least amount of pain for the ratepayers. It's one of those decisions that some of my predecessors frankly avoided. They did what a lot of politicians do. Rather than being the bad guy and saying, we have to raise your rates, they kicked the can down the road. And we're not going to do that. I inherited this problem when I was elected, as did my colleagues, and we are not going to be part of leaving it for somebody else. The second major infrastructure need is to finally provide our public safety employees, both police and fire, with an appropriate public safety facility. Now, you heard me talk about that last year, and I'm going to talk about it more because we're going to do it, folks. We're going to build what we need to build. Currently, the police department is spread out in inadequate facilities all over town. The records division is working out of a strip mall. The jail is housed in a double-wide trailer at City Yard. The facility where we question or lock up drug addicts who have just been caught burglarizing one of your homes, or a domestic violence suspect who just beat up their spouse, is the same place we have to interview a rape victim because we don't have the proper facility to provide privacy and dignity that most police departments take for granted. Suspects are kept handcuffed to a bench until they can be transported to county jail. And every time our officers need to transport a suspect because we don't have any place to hold them ourselves, we're losing hours and hours of those officers out on the street doing the things that we need them to do. We do not have the technology that we need because we're so separated. The police annex, our old city hall, had a rat infestation this year. I don't know how many of you knew that. We had a rat infestation. Heard about it in LA. We had it here. The rats chewed through the cables and the department temporarily lost communication capabilities in the building. We had to move administration, the chief, the assistant chief, lieutenants, detectives, crime analysts, and others out of the building to remove the rats, repair the damage, and clean the building. Our firefighters have been stationed for years in a temporary, by the way, I know what that means because I worked for Kaiser Permanente. We had a lot of temporary buildings that lasted for years that we refer to somewhat graciously as Fire Station 4. We've had pipes opened up and sewage come down on the police officers. It's embarrassing and it's unconscionable in a city that prides itself on its own university, its symphony, its bowl, a hospital, and all of the cultural amenities that we have in this town, that we do not have a decent place for the men and women who work in public safety. Over the past few years, the city has begun purchasing property along Redlands Boulevard west of Tennessee Street and adjacent to the current city yards, with plans to someday build a new public safety facility. Well, folks, someday is long past. It's been 10 years since the police department was forced to leave Old Safety Hall at Brookside and Eureka because of the seismic issues, asbestos, and inadequate space. Even then, the department was spread out in makeshift facilities. A new public safety facility that would house both the police department and the fire department will cost $40 million to build, and that's a price tag we can't currently afford. Given the challenges I mentioned, you might be surprised to learn that crime is down in Redlands. And I know that's not something you read about on social media. Please stop reading Redlands Buzz and Redlands Government. But the reality, we got two great local newspapers, guys. You can get the real information. But the reality is, in 2018, Part 1 crimes, the most serious offenses, dropped more than 22% from the prior year. So far this year, that trend is continuing. At the same time, violent crime is up. The increase is driven of all things by murders. Keep in mind that in Redlands, one murder like we had in 2017 is one too many. But when you have two, you've now doubled the murder rate. In 2018, we had 6, and our murder rate went up 500%. Now that is not a sign of a violent community. But those are the types of crimes and investigations that put the greatest strain on our department's resources. The Redlands Police Department has done a tremendous job of leveraging new technology, including drones and automated license plate reader cameras, to stay steps ahead of the criminals, despite the challenges such as the prison early release program and other changes by the state of California that have made it more difficult to hold criminals accountable for their behavior. Nonetheless, we will continue to be victims of our own successes. As new businesses open and existing businesses thrive, as our downtown and other retail and entertainment areas attract more and more visitors, we will continue to see growing need for more public safety. In the fire department, it is vital for our fire apparatus, fire engines, brush engines, ladder truck, paramedic squads, and command vehicles be replaced before they reach the end of their service life, and that they are always in a state of operational readiness. These vehicles can range in cost from $100,000 for a command vehicle to $1.2 million for a ladder truck. The fire department currently has 2 frontline fire engines that are 2 years past their service life. The fleet does not have a reserve ladder truck, which leaves the city without an aerial ladder and specialized extraction equipment whenever the frontline truck goes in for service or breaks down. This creates a significant gap in coverage that can have a detrimental impact on public safety. This past year, the department's frontline paramedic squad, the busiest in the unit in the fleet, experienced a catastrophic engine failure, causing crews to use the reserve squad, which is more than 20 years old and not reliable. Over the past decade, the fire department calls have increased 30%. Even before that, consultants recommended that the fire department needed an additional fire station to effectively respond to the calls it was already receiving. Medical aid calls account for 75% of the total volume last year. And let me tell you, that's why we're really happy to have a beautiful new emergency room at Redlands Community Hospital. Jen, thank you all very much for that. Redlands voters acknowledged the need and value in establishing its own emergency paramedic program way back in 1986 and agreed to tax themselves. Since then, the revenue generated has been sufficient to cover program expenses despite significant increases in the cost index without a corresponding increase in the paramedic tax rate. However, we can foresee a time in the future when that becomes less and less practical. The Redlands Fire Department operates with one paramedic assigned to each unit. When a critical medical aid incident occurs, a unit from another station has to respond as well to provide 2 paramedics. This creates a gap in coverage as that second unit now isn't available to respond to an emergency in their own district. The domino effect has a significant negative impact on response times and therefore on public safety. Earlier this year, the city hired a firm to conduct polling of our residents in preparation for a possible sales tax measure on the November 2020 ballot. The polling, which by the way was very favorable, asked residents about their top priorities for city resources. Crime prevention, fire protection, emergency response times were the top priorities, along with library services, reducing homelessness, maintaining parks and sidewalks, and the construction of a new public safety center. In the next few months, the City Council will be discussing adding a sales tax measure on the November 2020 ballot to provide for these public safety and other general service needs. For about 50 cents, the price of a postage stamp, out of every $100 spent on taxable goods, a half-cent sales tax increase could provide $5 million every year to meet these critical needs. A 1 cent sales tax, $1 on every $100 on taxable items spent, would raise about $10 million. Now, remember the $5 to $10 million in revenue I mentioned that we were missing from Amazon? So let me tell you what that means to you. On a per capita basis, Redlands residents pay a total of $1,385 per year in sales tax. A half-cent increase would cost the average resident $96 a year. A 1 cent increase would cost about $191 a year. So let me do a little poll. Put my glasses on. You need to all be honest. How many of you today stopped somewhere in your town or this town and you bought a cup of coffee? Come on, let me see all the hands. All right? How many of you usually buy a cup of coffee from Starbucks or any of our local places during the course of the week? You buy at least 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. Okay, all right, I appreciate your honesty, but there's a bunch of you in here I don't believe. If you purchase one single mocha latte each week from one of our great coffee venues in town, you would spend $208 on your addiction each year. And I do know that most of you don't just buy one per week. So at 2 per week, you would spend $416 a year on coffee. On coffee! Redlands residents told us that they want to see improvements in city services, especially public safety. I think they'd be willing to spend $191 a year, less than the amount that most of you spend on coffee, to achieve those improvements. And I know a lot of you in this room, and if coffee isn't your vice, I can guarantee you I can come up with a few others. Absolutely guarantee it. Depending on what the council decides, a sales tax measure will likely be coming to the voters at the end of 2020. But 2 weeks ago, the majority of my council colleagues and I approved placing another measure on the ballot for March 2020, one that has profound implications for Redlands' future. Next month, the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority will hold a groundbreaking event downtown near the old Santa Fe Depot, marking the beginning of the construction of the Aero Route, the Redlands Passenger Rail Project. Last year, the City Council approved a new general plan, which, among other things, identified 3 transit village sites, corresponding to the 3 planned rail stations along the Aero Route, one near the Esri campus, another one here at the University of Redlands, and one downtown. Imagine, if you will, neighborhoods where residents could walk or cycle to local shops, where employees live a short walk from work, catch a train to downtown Los Angeles or the beach, or where visitors could enjoy retail and entertainment venues of our historic downtown, attend the symphony at the University of Redlands, or see a performance at our beloved bowl, all within a short walk of a train station or their homes. That is what's envisioned by the transit villages. Those of you that have attended these series of transit village meetings the city held over the past several months already have an idea of what is being discussed. Right now, there are no projects planned at the university or at the Esri campus. But in the meetings that we've had with Esri, there has been great interest in what might develop downtown. Esri, as most of you know, is one of Redlands' largest employers. They hire about 500 to 700 net employees every year on the Redlands campus. And they're telling us that their employees and potential employees love Redlands. They love the open space. They love the parks. They love what they hear about our school district. They love that we save citrus and all the beautiful historic homes we have. They love our many cultural amenities with the bowl and the university. But what they say that we're missing is a vibrant urban downtown and a walkable, bikeable community where they can get to things without a vehicle. They want to get to restaurants and entertainment, and they want to go to the dry cleaners and the pharmacy, and they want to do it all within walking distance or biking distance of work or their homes. That's the future, folks. These young people are the future. Many of these are our sons and daughters or our grandchildren who we want to stay in Redlands or to come back and work and live in Redlands. They're an enormous economic generator for the city of Redlands. Many of them can and are extremely involved in our community. And I'm sure many of you know the people at Esri. You may be related to some of them, and you know how involved those employees are in our town. Currently, 2 projects are being proposed that would somewhat address this need. One is at the old Safety Hall site on Brookside and Eureka. While no formal proposal for the site has been submitted yet, the property owner's concept plans include 2 restaurants and a multifamily housing component. The second project is a multifamily development proposed for the old McEwen's furniture site at Redlands Boulevard and Eureka Street. Together, these projects add up to about 300 residential units. Only 300 residential units, folks, along with restaurants and retail. And then there's the mall site. All right, go ahead and laugh. The current owner is flipping the project, and the prospective new owners have already made it clear that they cannot develop the mall without multifamily housing being associated with it. Now, you have to understand, that's been true of every developer that has talked to the city about this over the decades. It has to include multifamily housing. They all have told us the same thing. Now, I want to digress from my remarks just a little bit. The potential owners from Village Partners are here with us today. I'm not going to single them out. But we've already had a meeting with them, and we have another one scheduled, I believe, for next week. The meetings have been very constructive, very positive. They come with a very sound track record of performance. They're building similar projects in Montclair and Claremont. They've worked with one of our guests here today, Mr. Tessier, and I am encouraged. Now, I told them I'm also very jaded and have a lot of skepticism, but we're going to continue working with them, and we're going to find a way to make that mall site into something that benefits the community. The only thing standing in the way of the 2 current projects proposals and the potential for the Redlands Mall are the provisions of 3 growth control measures that were approved by the voters 20 to 30 years ago. Measure N, Measure U, and Proposition R. At the time they were approved, there was fear that somehow the Redlands of the late 1960s and 70s was going to explode with urban sprawl, and our town was going to somehow disappear. Among other things, these pieces of legislation placed limits on the number of residential units that could be built each year, and the density per acre that would be allowed on a piece of property. The measures were successful in controlling residential growth, and frankly, I feel some of that was good. Unfortunately, they also had some unintended consequences that were not so good, as it made potential businesses feel very unwelcome here. Since then, we have reached a point where the urban sprawl that most people were concerned about is frankly no longer possible. If you look at the land that's zoned for residential development in our new general plan, and you assume we're going to develop all of that land at the same density where we've developed everything else historically in the city, with single-family homes, it would only provide for 2,000 more units until 2035 when we reach build-out. Period. It's not going to be huge Los Angeles basin in Redlands. Since these measures and the propositions went into place, we've only built an average of 144 units a year. I think that's something probably not many of you know. We've only built 144 units a year on average. So how do we support this new vision of a vibrant urban core with retail, entertainment, and residents living within walking distance or biking distance of all? Well, the voters approved the slow growth legislation, and it's the voters of Redlands who will need to decide whether to change it. The measure we're putting on the ballot in March 2020 will ask the residents of Redlands to exempt only the transit villages, within a half a mile of the train stations from all of these provisions. At the same time, it will leave all of those provisions in place for the entire rest of the community. 3 to 5% of the community is in the transit villages. 95% of the city is going to remain under those protective umbrellas that the voters voted so many years ago. Height has been a question. The height of buildings is not governed by these provisions. It will be governed by our specific plan when we adopt it, and will probably range from 3 to 5 stories. Now, I've seen the social media posts, and I've heard people say, "Oh, Paul, you're changing the character of Redlands by having 4 and 5-story buildings." Well, obviously, these residents haven't gone to see Dr. Gonzalez at the Smiley Library and see pictures of our town from the late 18 and 1900s. We were once resplendent with 3, 4, 5, and 5-plus story buildings in downtown. Even the iconic Casa Loma Hotel and the La Posada, which to this day people still lament losing, were 4 and 5 stories with their parapets and towers. Putting up 4 and 5-story buildings, ladies and gentlemen, is not new. It does not change the character of Redlands. In fact, if anything, it honors our heritage. Now, what the quality of those projects looks like is up to us. And we have to hold developers to a very high standard. You've seen the designs for the 2 proposed projects. I happen to think they'll fit quite nicely into our downtown, and they reflect the varied architectural history of Redlands. These are only concept proposals, though, and I believe working together with the developers, we can make them even better. The question now of whether or not we want these changes is up to the community. If the ballot measure is not approved, I can tell you what's going to happen. These projects will not be built. They cannot be built under the existing laws. The old Safety Hall site, which is a big pile of dirt and weeds right now, can be a beautiful project with residential, retail, and entertainment. Or it can be a big pile of dirt for the foreseeable future. The current owner will sell the site to another investor, and eventually, in my opinion, a lesser quality project will be built there. The property at Redlands Boulevard in Eureka can be a vibrant, attractive, multifamily residential project, or it can remain what it is, a liquidation center. And the Redlands Mall site, I guarantee you, will still be looking there at an empty mall site 10 to 15 years from now, just like it is, if these are not changed. Those projects are not going to move forward if the voters don't approve the exemptions for the transit villages. And from my perspective, that is simply not all right. I had somebody say to me recently, and I know some of you heard me say this, they were talking about the mall. Well, we've grown really kind of used to it. Well, that's pretty pathetic. And from my owners, we should not accept that. We should keep working with the new owners to find a way to turn it into something that could benefit the community. Now, last year in this venue, we enjoyed a video by Work and Play Productions. Do you remember it? Those who were here? With the grandfather explaining to the granddaughter, Bella, how past generations have paved the way for things we enjoy today. A successful city continues to grow, evolve, and improve while staying true to its uniqueness, its sense of place. Oh. Knowing what to build and remembering what to keep. That's what this ballot measure represents. Growing, evolving, improving, while staying true to our uniqueness and our sense of place. I believe we've reached a point where we not only can, but must turn our focus clearly forward as we cross the horizon and build bridges towards what Redlands can and will be for the next generation and the one after that. Yes, our job is to make sure that day-to-day services continue to improve, to provide excellent public safety, to repair the roads, trim the trees, pick up the trash, deliver safe water and recreation. But there is more to leadership and stewardship than simply keeping the lights on and the water running. There is an urgent obligation to our children and our grandchildren to leave them a vibrant and thriving community. And our job today is to plan for their tomorrow. While these transit-centered projects remain tantalizingly on the horizon, there are plenty of exciting new developments happening now that demonstrate the confidence our business community has in our future. Our whole downtown area is beginning to revitalize. There is all kinds of activity going on, from renovation work that Property One LLC is doing at the historic Santa Fe Depot, to the expansion of the packing house district currently underway. That project will extend the current packing house district project anchored by the Sprouts Market across Stewart Avenue, adding a new 6,000 square foot retail building and a standalone 8,000 square foot restaurant. Currently, cultural inventory work is being done on the site where archaeologists are uncovering the remains of the city's historic Sonora town. That excavation and the entire project will preserve and honor our heritage and incorporate it into our future. Another project that's incorporating our heritage into Redlands' bright future is the historic Mutual Orange Distribution Packing House at 3rd Street and Shoppers Lane. Last month, the community was invited to tour the building for the groundbreaking of the new Redlands Public Market. Artico partners Jerry and Ed Tessier have a proven track record of adaptive reuse. You can go to the Claremont Packing House or the Riverside Food Lab. How many of you have been to either one? All right, Jerry, you should be pretty happy. And you can see the types of high-quality projects that they've been involved in. The Redlands Public Market will bring in unique entrepreneurial businesses, independent food operators, local farmers, and homegrown restaurateurs. The completed project will include organic produce, cooking classes, and a public space for entertainment and community events. I'm truly pleased today to have Jerry Tessier from Artico Partners here as my guest. Jerry, would you stand up for a minute? I hope you'll take a moment to come by and say hi. And thank you for welcoming Jerry. There you go. Glad to have Jerry and his team in Redlands. As part of the downtown development, the city is entering a joint venture with Property One LLC and a parking structure to build somewhere between 300 and 400 parking spots that will not only serve the rail line, but also our hospitality and entertainment venues. Along Stewart Avenue, there's a stretch of vacant land all the way down to Eureka. Property One LLC owns part of that, and we, the city, own the other part. We are close to finalizing an agreement with Property One to build the structure. Our contribution to the project will be our land, which has been appraised at $1.8 million. And then they're going to build a very, very attractive parking structure on the site, along with a series of retail buildings and a promenade, a pathway with palm trees down the middle that will extend on either side of the rail and provide a pedestrian crossover. People will be able to park in the structure and get on the train. They can park in there to go to the new Redlands Public Market or to the theater. 200 parking spots in the structure will be dedicated to our obligation to the San Bernardino County Transit Authority. The remaining 150 or so will be open to the public. Downtown Redlands is truly on the cusp of a renaissance. We've seen it in the energy surrounding the projects we've discussed here. We've seen it in the revitalization of our downtown. But most importantly, we are seeing it every day in the enthusiasm of the people who are choosing to invest not just their money, but their ingenuity and their future in Redlands.
When I grew up here, it was a lovely town. It was a great town. I have wonderful memories. But after 5 o'clock, you could fire a cannon down the street. The 3 or 4 restaurants that were around, everybody knew if you'd been in them. The town was a little tightly buttoned. And now it's got a much more free and open feeling. It's added a new vibrancy, and I like that. And yet we still have the quiet neighborhoods and the monuments and the buildings and places that we've traditionally loved, but it's a whole new energy.
There's always somewhere to get kind of involved in the city in some way, whether it's in the active growth or just one of the social outlets. But I think that's what really gives Redlands a neat element in the area that's good for people coming here, is that we have a community, not just houses.
This is home for us. You know, we've lived here for almost 12 years now, and I went to school here at University of Redlands. We've raised our 3-year-old daughter here. You know, we have a business here on State Street, and we live 2 miles away. So this is the community that we love and we want to be a part of for a long time.
Our town loves locals. They love seeing a family business grow and actually succeed. It's nice keeping the mom and pop businesses, people that really have dreams, and the dreamers here.
I grew up in Redlands. I went to school here, and it really helped me become who I am, and I felt that I wanted to give something back that was taught to me.
Historians never predict the future. They fall flat on their face. But I think I can say a trend or two here in Redlands. It will continue to attract more people associated with technology and with what I call entertainment and happiness industry. I think it's becoming more and more known as a destination place and not just a place to see and then pass on.
I just see this vibrant world of Redlands in the next 10 to 15 years, and it's still going with the train coming through.
We talk about preserving the past, and here's an example of where we're bringing something new, but we're also bringing something from the past and just making it more useful for members of our community.
Knowing that growth is necessary and the live, work, play concept of being able to have higher density downtown living. The more people you have living downtown, the more money is being spent downtown. Anything you can do as far as change and growth that allows more people access to the things they're trying to get.
Younger generations coming up into Redlands right now aren't going to be able to afford the beautiful Victorian homes, the orange groves. We do need to have some growth that will allow a younger generation into our community to become part of our community.
Change for Redlands means growing with the times, but doing it responsibly.
I really think Redlands is evolving. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, you could drive up and down State Street and not see one car. Today, we're complaining about not having enough parking.
The horizon is so broad with what you can do as a city, as a community. I think the growth is needed for our city.
I think our service organizations, our efforts to preserve historic spaces and buildings, the increase of community spaces like the Orange Alleyway and the Redlands Skate Park, those are community-led efforts that further create spaces for our families to operate in and enjoy.
Staying stagnant gets nowhere. It doesn't get anywhere. It doesn't give us an opportunity to flourish. We've got so much potential in this community. It's sort of like a seed, and letting that seed grow into a plant. And from that plant, you have these flowers. And I think Redlands is this seed that has an ability to grow into something magical and beautiful.
We've got so much great things coming to fruition. A lot of people who grew up in Redlands are coming back to Redlands, opening up new businesses. There's a lot of exciting developments happening.
There's younger and older business people coming into town. And one thing I've noticed is those business people are reopening more businesses in town for a reason. They're doing it because they're being treated well. It's a beautiful place to be, and that's why we're here.
People that own and operate businesses here in Redlands are so proud to be part of the fabric of Redlands. When you walk down State Street,
All of the businesses are so welcoming, they're so inviting. It feels like home.
The fabric of the city is definitely the people, you know, and the values and the culture. It's a community that everybody wants to be a part of.
Future's not always as easy to edge into as people think. It takes a solid eye and a strong vision, and then a lot of guts to implement it. And where there's no cooperation, there's no progress. This is a different era, so in some ways the change has already happened. It's how we roll with it and implement it and are wise to it that will make for the success. Edith Parker Hinckley caught it best 4 decades ago when she said, no matter how you analyze Redlands, it's ultimately people that make the difference.
You never can go wrong when you have Larry Burgess in a video. Thank you, Larry. I think Ryan Burke hit it on the head when he heard him say, staying stagnant gets us nowhere. Gets us nowhere. To continue to move our community in the light of a positive future, we must be focused and yet visionary at the same time. Redlands has enjoyed historical success because our forefathers were indeed focused and visionary. As Dr. Burgess just reminded us, we now must have the guts to implement that strong vision for our future. And so, my fellow Redlanders, each year, while I have served as your mayor, I have had the good fortune to reiterate that the state of the city, the state of our hometown, remains strong. And this year, I can add that we are ready to cross that bridge into our future with confidence. With dedicated elected leaders, an innovative executive team, committed employees, with visionary businesses and community leaders, and with residents who are truly eager to extend the legacy of Redlands, we are building that bridge for future generations, leaving a vibrant city for our children and our grandchildren. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for being here with us today. It's a blessing. I'm honored to be your mayor. May God bless each of you in our beloved hometown of Redlands now and always. Thank you very much.